Hi Gandhi class, welcome to your first maths lesson this week. And in this session today, we are going to be looking at recognising a quarter. So our learning objective for this lesson is, can I recognise a quarter? In today's lesson, we will be recapping our learning from year 2 so that we are able to recognise a quarter of shapes, objects and quantities, and to explore quarters using concrete and pictorial representations. But before we begin, please get your whiteboard and whiteboard pen ready to answer these 4 questions below. Pause the video now to do that and then press play when you're ready to go through the answers. Okay, so question number 1 says, complete the sentence. And the sentence says, 10 less than something is 496. So what you need to do here was the inverse by adding 10 to 496 to find out what it is 10 less than, which is 506. Give yourself a tick if you got that correct. Question number 2 says 512 equals 500 plus a 10 plus something 10 plus something ones. So you needed to fill in how many 10s there were and how many ones. So if we have a look at our number 512, we can see that there is 1 in the 10s column, so it's 1 10, and a 2 in the ones column, so it's 2 ones. Give yourself a tick if you got that correct. The next question says, write the next number in the sequence below. Now, what you needed to do here was to find a pattern. So if we have a look at the difference between 0 and 200, we know we are adding 200. If we look at the difference between 200 and 400, we can see that we are adding 200 again. Between 400 and 600, we are adding 200. So to find the missing number in the sequence, we would have needed to add 200 to 600, which gives us 800. Give yourself a tick if you got that correct. And question number 4 says, what is 5 multiplied by 6? So you're doing 5 times 6, 5 lots of 6, which is 30. So give yourself a tick if you got that correct. Okay, now let's have a go at completing these sentences below. The first sentence says, the whole cake is split into something equal parts. So let's have a look at our cake here. We can see it's been split, but let's count and see how many parts it's been split into. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the whole cake has been split into how many equal parts? 4. Well done. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts in our cake. That means each part is worth what? Pause the video to have a think. Well done. Each part is worth a quarter. This can then be written as 1, then a line, and then a 4. That shows a quarter. Okay, let's have a look at this slide here. So I want you on your whiteboards to draw the shapes, and then I want you to shade a quarter of each shape. So pause the video now to draw these shapes and shade in a quarter of them. Okay, so your shapes should have looked like this. Because we only want a quarter, you would only be shading in one part. So here, this one shows a quarter. This one shows a quarter because only one part has been shaded in of our 4. And again, a quarter is shown here and here. And we know it's a quarter because the whole has been split into 4 and only one of those parts has been shaded in. Okay, let's have a look at this question. So this question says, which pictures have had a quarter shaded in? Write the letters on your whiteboard. So we've got A, B, C, and D. Now, which of these have had a quarter shaded in? Pause your video now to write it on your whiteboard. Okay, let's go through each one. So if we have a look at A, we can see it's been equally split into 4 parts and one of those parts has been shaded. So give yourself a tick if you put A. Let's have a look at B. So B again has been split into 4 parts and one part has been shaded. So give yourself a tick if you wrote B. Now let's look at C. Again, it's been split into 4 parts. However, it is not showing a quarter. Why do you think that is? Pause the video to have a think. Well done. That's because these parts have not been split equally. So therefore, it is not a quarter. You can see that this part here is a lot bigger than this part that has been shaded. So it is not equal and therefore not showing a quarter. So what about D then? Is D showing a quarter? No, it's not, because it hasn't been split into 4 parts. Instead, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's not showing a quarter. Oh, can you please draw these shapes again and split them into quarters correctly? So you need to draw the circle and split it into a quarter correctly. And you need to draw the rectangle and split it into a quarter correctly. So pause the video to have a go at doing that now. Okay, so it should look something like this. So here we've got our circle. We've split it into 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts, and we have shaded in one of those equal parts. You can then see that we've now split this rectangle into 4 equal parts and shaded in one as well. You could have also turned the rectangle on its side and made it look like this one if you wanted to, but this is how you should have shown them, splitting them into quarters correctly. Let's have a look at this question together. Now it says Rosie is folding 2 identical paper strips, and she says, I think a quarter of the strip will be bigger than a half of the strip because 4 is bigger than 2. Do you agree with Rosie? Use the paper strips to investigate. Now, if you would like to use paper strips that you have in your home yourself to work it out, then please do. If not, let's go through this together using these paper strips on the board. So what we're going to do first is we're going to use this paper strip to show 1 half. Now, if we're showing a half, it means it needs to be equally split into 2. So I'm going to draw a line right down the middle. There we go, to show a half. So this here is a half, and this here is a half. Okay. Now what I'm going to do on this strip is to split it into a quarter. So I'm going to split it into 4 equal parts. I'm going to draw a line down the middle, and then I'm going to split this bit as well, and here too. So now this shows a quarter, a quarter, a quarter, and a quarter. And if you want to have a go using paper strips to do this yourself, please do. So do you agree with Rosie? Is 1/4 bigger than a half? Pause the video to have a think. No, you should not agree with Rosie, because we can see here that a quarter is a half of a half. So therefore, a half is bigger than a quarter, not the other way around. So as we've said here, Rosie is not correct because the whole is the same. 1/4 will always be smaller than 1/2, as you can see here. Now it's your turn. Choose between activity 1, activity 2, or activity 3, and then you can challenge yourself further with the challenge questions. So activity number 1 says, for the first part, that you need to write the letters of the shapes that are split into 4 equal parts. So you've got A, B, C, and D, and you need to write down the letters of the shapes that are split into 4 equal parts. Then part 2 of activity 1 says you need to draw the shapes and shade 1/4 of each of the shapes. So you need to draw these shapes out and shade in 1/4 of them. This is activity number 1. Activity number 2, you need to sort the shapes. So you need to draw a circle and above it write 1/4, and then draw another circle and above it write not 1/4. Then you need to go through each of these shapes to show which ones are showing 1/4 and which are not showing 1/4, and sort them into the circles. All you need to do here is write the corresponding letter and put it into the correct circle. Remember, if you're looking for something that's 1/4, it needs to have one part of it shaded and it needs to be split into 4 equal parts. This is activity number 2, so pause here if you are going to be completing this activity. Okay, and activity number 3. Which one is the odd one out, and explain why? So you need to tell me which one of these is the odd one out and explain why it is, from A, B, C, and D. And then you need to do the same thing with the next question. So which one of these here is the odd one out and why? So remember, when you're explaining, you need to use that word because. Pause the video here if this is the question, this is the activity that you are going to complete. And the challenge questions. So the first challenge, to show 1/4, I will shade less than 4 triangles. Is Jess correct? Explain how you know, and then colour the picture to show 1/4. So you need to explain if she is correct or not by using that word because. The next one says, how many green dots will need to be added to represent 1/4 of the orange dots? Explain how you know, and then show this by drawing the dots. The next question says, each picture represents 1/4. Spot the mistake and explain your answer. So you've got A, B, C, and D. Which one does not show 1/4? And the last question says, if a shape has been split into 20 parts, I would need to shade 4 to show 1/4. Is cat correct? Explain your answer and then show this on a diagram. So you need to draw it out. Please make sure you upload your work to Tapestry Gandhi class, and I will see you next time. Bye.